Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very powerful show coming right up with special guest Sally Helgesen, and she's here today to talk to us about her new book, How Women Rise. Now, as an author, speaker, and consultant, it's been Sally's mission to always help women recognize, articulate, and act on their greatest strength. Her previous books include The Female Vision, Women's Real Power at Work, and the bestseller, The Female Advantage, Women's Ways of Leadership. Her groundbreaking, The Web of Inclusion, a New Architecture for Building Great Organizations, was cited in the Wall Street Journal as one of the best books on leadership and is credited with bringing the language of inclusion into business. So let's welcome to the show, Sally.
Thank you, Marianne. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, what an honor it is to have you here. And my goodness, once I got my hands on your book, I just had to have you on the show. What a profound book. My goodness.
Thank you. Yeah, we're getting very, very good response. I think the timing is right and the message seems very resonant with women.
Well, and for our listeners that are new to your work, I would love for you to share the inspiration behind this book. I just love this story.
Okay, fine. I have been working with women leaders and aspiring women leaders around the world for the last 30 years, since my book, The Female Advantage, Women's Ways of Leadership, came out in 1990, still in print. And so I've had an opportunity to witness the emergence of women into positions of real authority and influence, and I'm happy to say to be part of that. So that's been a very encouraging thing. My mission has always been consistent throughout this whole time, to help women to recognize, articulate, and act on their greatest strengths. To that end, in starting about 2011, I developed a workshop for women that I was delivering all around the globe on developing the capabilities of being visionary, intentional, connected, and present. And for the intentional part of that workshop, I began using a wonderful book by a friend and colleague, Marshall Goldsmith, called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it is about how the same behaviors that help successful people get to the middle of their career can also get in their way as they seek to rise to the top. So it's a wonderful template, very thoughtful, developed from Marshall's coaching practice. Marshall has been the last 8 years voted the number one executive coach in the world, so he knows whereof he speaks. He's been in this career for almost 40 years. And so I found the book very helpful, but the overriding idea. But as I was using it in my workshops, it was very clear to me that a lot of the behaviors that he focused on that get in the way of successful people were very male-centric behaviors, which is not surprising given that his coaching base is mostly CEOs, so it's about 80% male. For example, he would have things like, you need to learn to apologize, and that kind of made me and the women I was working with laugh because we all know women who can't open the door without apologizing for the fact that they opened the door. So that's not exactly a behavior, that threatens to get in women's way. And he had a behavior in there about, don't talk all the time about how great you are. And many women struggle to talk about how great they are at all, even when directly asked. So it was clear to me that while the template, the overriding idea of behaviors that serve you well early in your career, getting in your way as you seek to rise, was a strong one, the behaviors weren't exactly right for many women. So I suggested to him, why don't we collaborate on a version of this book that would look at the behaviors most likely to get in the way of successful women as they seek to rise further. And the result of that is How Women Rise, co-authored by me, Sally Helgesen, and Marshall Goldsmith. And it came out in April, and we're having a lot of fun with it.
Well, it's easy to see, Sally, why Forbes has called you the world's premier expert on women's leadership. And I'm so glad that you collaborated with Marshall Goldsmith on this book. It's a very profound book. One of the things that, of course, my goodness, I mean, what a joy it is to be able to spend this time with you to talk about it. One of the things that I would love for you to share with our listeners is the difference between how men and women define success, because it seems that there's a little bit of a kind of a split in some categories when that's, brought up.
I think that's traditionally been true. I do think it's been changing, but I'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. Traditionally, men in organizations have tended to define success based pretty much entirely upon position and salary. And organizations also reward good performance with those two things, with a higher position and a larger salary. So that's a very, organizations have been structured in that way, and until fairly recently, organizations were structured almost entirely for men. But what I've discovered, and I really discovered this when researching my last book, The Female Vision, Women's Real Power at Work, is that women often define success a little bit differently. They feel that a job or a position is truly and deeply engaging to them if they have some degree of control over their time. That doesn't mean not being busy, not being under pressure, but that they have some degree of control over their time, as if they can build successful and rewarding relationships in the course of their work, but also outside their work as well, if they have the time and the encouragement to do that. And above all, that they enjoy their days, that they feel that they get to show up for and enjoy most of their days, not all of their days. We're human, and none of us will ever enjoy every day we have. But that was very important to women. And when I would interview women who had left jobs that looked great on paper in terms of salary, in terms of traditional rewards, in terms of position, most of them would say, I decided it just wasn't worth it. And I thought, what does worth mean in that context? Worth indicates slightly different structure of values. So I think that that's something that women have really brought to organizations. Let's not just look at the salary and position when we're talking about success. Let's also look at the quality of our days, the quality of our relationships, our ability to use our time in what we feel are productive and meaningful ways. And I think that women have had a big influence on organizations in terms of bringing some of these conversations to the fore. At least these are conversations organizations are having now, often using them under the sort of rubric or terminology of engagement. But I think that's been a great gift. And I also think that it's somewhat beginning to change, because I hear all the time from managers and leaders in organizations that young men as well, when they're hiring, also seem to have, a desire to have jobs in which they can find a sense of purpose and meaning, and in which they can feel that they can create enjoyable and harmonious, if you will, lives that don't just completely get consumed by work and by the race for traditional definitions of success.
Well, and on that note, what are some of the things that have surprised you about this book?
Well, I would say the thing that has probably surprised, well, a couple things. One of the things that has surprised me most is how many men have told me not just what I thought they would say is, this book is really helpful to me in terms of managing women who work for me, managing the relationships of the women I work for, managing colleague relationships, understanding my wife and daughters, etc. I was prepared for that, and of course I've heard a lot of that. But I've also heard from quite a number of men who come up either, it can be at a program or an event I'm doing, because I've been all around the country over the last 2 months, or it can be in a radio show or podcast, of which I've done quite a few. Men will say, some of these behaviors, I feel that I identify with them too. Particularly men who are a little more introverted, who might be, say, engineers or other subject matter expertise, or have other subject matter expertise. I hear that a lot from men, and I'm fascinated because what it has led me to conclude is that, in fact, these are human behaviors. They're not women's behaviors. They're human behaviors, human habits, but they are the habits most likely to get in the way of women as they seek to rise.
Are you also finding that, like, men, as far as managers or leaders, are purchasing your book so that they can better understand how to mentor, if we're talking like sales teams or teams of women and mixed individuals, and how to be a better leader, how to better apply these techniques to their leadership skills?
Yes, definitely finding that. And I think that there's so much orientation, again, very positive in organizations now around teams and team building, as opposed to, just where the leader stands. Excellent leadership is really recognized now as the ability to build and facilitate engaged and productive teams. So we're definitely seeing that, and that's one of the many reasons I feel that the timing is very, very good on this book, because anybody, man or woman, seeking to build a powerful, high-functioning, high-performance team in their workplace can benefit by reading this book, because they can identify some of the behaviors that may be holding some of the women and, in fact, some of the men back from being better performing.
Well, and I can agree with you more. This couldn't be a better time than now to have this book out, especially because there are so many women out there looking to develop their voice and be better at their job and in ways that they find that are impactful for them.
Yes, exactly. So there's much more willingness, and we see it in everything from the press for parity to the hashtag #MeToo. We see all these occasions in which women are saying, I want to use my voice. I want to use my voice for positive change. I want to step up and talk about what my experience is. And more honesty and more comfort with that. So I think that that's one of the reasons we're really hitting a nerve. I just had a LinkedIn message this morning when I looked, and it was from a company in the Netherlands that has 100,000 employees that feels that this book is going to be, sort of an answer in terms of some of their cross-cultural teams that they're trying to develop. So we are striking a nerve, and I'm really glad. Again, I said, Marianne, I've been doing this for 30 years, and the environment has not always been so receptive. There hasn't always been the openness of willingness to consider what women may have to contribute. The idea when we started out really coming into the workplace in the late 80s was, put on your bow tie and adapt to the culture you find. You're not going to change it. I think it was naive to think that one half the human race could come into the workplace and begin assuming positions of power and influence without changing things. But it really has been a great source of excitement, privilege, and confirmation for me to watch the environment begin to change in ways that reflects the message I've been working to put out there for 30 years, but also really affirms the extraordinary value of what women have to contribute.
Well, and thank goodness for you and women like you who have been like the lighthouse for many women around, not just the United States, but obviously the world, who are looking to have that positive impact and to, in some ways it feels like almost reclaiming your power in the workplace, because it's been so unrecognized for so long. Claiming
the power, because it really has not been it hasn't been manifest. And and I think women increasingly have the confidence to do that and, recognize that what I have to contribute, this organization really needs. So I'm going to find a way to do this. And that's what really the goal is here, is having an impact, is helping women have a bigger impact. And that's what we mean when we talk about successful women. We're not saying, this is for CEOs or this is for women who are at the level right below CEO who want to become CEO. Yes, can they benefit from it? We believe so and have heard feedback that confirms that. But this is really for however you define success. Success is always going to be the ability to have an impact and the ability to really make use of whatever your distinctive gifts are and have them appreciated, have them recognized, have them confirmed. And that's how we're defining success in this book. And, again, I think that's a more modern or contemporary way of defining success than just, position and salary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so what are some of the common beliefs that women hold that you find tend to hinder their success?
Yes, the common beliefs, that's a perfect question. I'd say the most common belief women hold that I hear, and I hear it every day when I get up and do a program wherever I am in the country, because our launch right now is just in the U.S. But what I hear is, if men speak up and use their voices, they are viewed positively as being assertive. If women do, they're viewed as being aggressive or inappropriate. So we're in a no-win situation. I hear that over and over for women. And I strongly believe that you do yourself more potential harm in terms of achieving what you want to achieve in the world to back off because you're afraid of being viewed as aggressive or ambitious, to just back off and let yourself to some degree be manipulated by that fear into not trying to have a maximum impact. There are many ways in which women can present their achievements, can gain recognition for their achievements, can use their voices in a clear and persuasive way without being overly aggressive, by presenting information about what they have contributed as information rather than, self-serving tidbits. So there are many ways that can happen. And I get discouraged when I see women backing off prematurely because they once got some feedback that said, oh, you were too aggressive, or, you should have backed off on that point. There are many ways to do that. We have lots of examples in the book of women who learned to navigate that and do that successfully in a way that was comfortable for them. So I think that is one of the things that the beliefs, if you will, that really does hold women back. There's no way I can be assertive and not be penalized for it. Another belief that holds women back is the belief that in order to succeed, they have to do everything perfectly. They have to, every piece of work they do has to be at the highest standard. They have to become an expert in whatever they're doing. People become successful, yes, by having some expertise, certainly, and doing the job well, but also by developing relationships, investing in those relationships by helping other people and asking for help, and by working hard to make sure that their efforts are recognized and visible at the top. So when women are overly committed to the belief that they have to do everything perfectly and that they're going to be promoted or not based on whether they become an expert in the job they have, they shortchange themselves. For one thing, they basically, when you're perfect with the job you have, you're only proving you're perfect for the job you have. It doesn't indicate anything about the next job because that will have different skills. And you may make yourself, and we see this a lot, indispensable to your boss. If you're, spend all your energy trying to be perfect at what you're doing. So looking up, starting to build allies and relationships from day one, asking people for help in helping you to identify what you need to do to get where you want to go, and offering help to people, setting up those kind of easy, I don't want it to sound too transactional, but to some degree, you help me and I'll help you relationships. That's usually how men have traditionally become successful, and it's a great path for women. And when women find a way to do that that's really comfortable for them, the sky's the limit.
Well, and so on that note, why do you think that some women are so reluctant to claim, like their achievements and be able to say, yeah, I did a great job with that?
Yeah, again, I think there's some limiting behaviors there. It was interesting. I did a piece of work for a group of partnership firms a number of years ago, and one of the questions I asked the senior partners was, what are the younger women, the women not at partner level, what are they best at, and what, where is the greatest challenge? And the answers to those questions were almost unanimous. They're best at doing A-plus quality work, at being conscientious, at showing up, at working as hard as they can to fulfill expectations. What they're worst at is getting known for the quality of their work. So when I asked the younger women in the firms why they felt that if they identified with that, and if so, why they thought they weren't very good at bringing visibility to their achievements. I heard one of two things. I heard, either I don't want to act, if I have to act like that obnoxious jerk down the hall to get noticed around here, no thank you. But that's really an either-or way of thinking. Either you're the most obnoxious person in the entire organization or you just keep your mouth shut. So that's setting up something that you really can't win. And the other thing I would hear was, I believe if I do great work, people should notice. And that's true. They probably should, and in an ideal world they would. But in most organizations, especially today, when people are so busy and pressed for time, they usually don't notice what you're doing unless it directly affects them. So it really is incumbent upon every one of us to find a way to bring attention to the quality of what we do. Because you know what? If we don't do that, then we don't get noticed or recognized for it. And then we start to feel bad. We start to detach. We start to think, oh, maybe I'm in the wrong place. Maybe my boss just is incapable of appreciating me. We can go down kind of a negative spiral of rumination and overthinking. So it's really important to do that just for our own, not just for our own careers, but for our own real mental health and the quality of our relationships, to focus some attention on getting known for what you do, and rather than expecting others to spontaneously notice and value what you're contributing.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think I have time for one more question before we go here. Gosh, we know that you're so busy helping corporations all over the world, make great, impactful changes in regards to women and being in the workplace. So, I know your book has listed the different habits, or 12 of them,
yes,
that we should take note of.
Yes.
Why don't you share with us one that you find that that women maybe need to really pay attention to?
Okay, sure. I think I've touched on 3 probably. Expecting others to notice, spontaneously notice and value your contributions. overvaluing expertise and what we call the perfection trap. But another one that's very common is what we call in the book the disease to please. That is the desire to make sure that in all circumstances, everybody feels you've been a wonderful person. And there are a lot of women who kind of fall into this, feeling that their job is to always meet everybody else's expectations, even when those expectations may not be entirely realistic, or even when they are almost projecting on other people what those expectations are. We have a wonderful example in the book of a woman who was a hospital. She was the head of community relations for a big hospital system, and she was terrific. Everyone loved her in the community, the patients, their families. She was asked to, speak at every community event when it had to do with the hospital. She was just very loved. And because she was so successful at it, she got a big promotion into real senior leadership of the hospital system. But as she did, she was so reluctant. She felt so guilty by not, continuing to have these relationships and interact with the patients, and especially the patient families that had depended upon her, and with different people in the community, that what she found was that she was, in addition to doing this big job as, member of the executive team, she was also still trying to do that job because she felt guilty. Families would say, well, we liked working with Deborah, and, we're not certain about the new person. Can't Deborah help us? And she'd always say yes. And she was driving herself out of her mind and not doing a very good job with either in her efforts to please everyone. And finally, the hospital system hired a coach for her, and the coach pointed out, you got where you did because other people gave you a chance, and you're not giving anyone a chance. You're trying to do everybody else's job for them because other people seem to want that. But that's not. You can't let other people violate your boundaries like that. And you need to let, younger people, the people who have come in to do the job you used to have, do that job. So she really began to think about it in terms of kind of her lack of boundaries was depriving other people of opportunities. And by the way, and this happens a lot, and I've seen it, as she got better at asserting her own boundaries and delegating tasks and holding other people to account for what she delegated, she also got a lot better at doing that in her family, and her family life improved. She was, in the same way, running herself ragged, trying to meet every expectation for her kids, even when it wasn't that important.
I love that perspective that you talk about, because a lot of women that get into that trap don't realize that it's like that. Someone gave you an opportunity, but you're not giving somebody else an opportunity if you're trying to do it all yourself. And yes, that's so true.
It is true, and it's a wonderful way for women to really understand if they're doing that, if they're behaving in that way, if they're exhibiting that habit, that it's not a good thing because women in general, want to help. They want to please. Every single one of the behaviors in this book, all 12 of them, is also rooted in a strength for women. And the disease to please, for example, is rooted in a very genuine and often compassionate desire to help other people and to be there for them. So in the book, we're certainly not ever advocating a 180-degree turn from the strengths that have helped get you to where you are. But we're showing how you can balance those with other habits and behaviors that will serve you more if you want to have a larger impact and achieve a more satisfying position in life for yourself.
Well, Sally, where can people connect with you and learn more about where they can not only be part of your community, but the book, How Women Rise?
Well, three things. The book, How Women Rise, is basically available everywhere. It's available all online retailers, in many bookstores. I'm seeing it in practically every airport I'm in, which is kind of a thrill, or train station. So it's very easy to get. We also offer a discussion guide because we're getting lots of email and LinkedIn notes saying, I want to use this in my women's book group or our book group in our organization this month. So we've developed a discussion guide, which we're going to be putting online and on our websites. It's not up yet, but I'm very glad to send it to anybody who gets in touch with me. And in terms of getting in touch, my website is sallyhelgesen.com and has a contact button. You can reach me there. My email is sally@sallyhelgesen.com. And although I'm on all the social media platforms, the one I really interact with is LinkedIn. So people can also send me an invitation on LinkedIn, and we can keep the conversation going.
Well, I'm connected with you on social media. I highly suggest everyone do the same. Sally, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. You've been a wonderful interviewer, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for your kind words, Sally. It's been such a joy to spend this time with you and to talk about your book, How Women Rise. Again, it's a great book to pick up for anyone in the workplace. And if you have teams or you're just wanting to know how to be a better leader, it's a must read. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.